Manhood and Christlikeness are synonymous. Why does this affect us? You're about to find out. Welcome to the ManChurch podcast.
Pastor Robert, ManChurch. Our church is predominantly known for its men's ministry, building men and raising sons. You're a father figure to a lot of people. And what would you start, like if a man wanted to be in ministry, a young man who has a desire to serve the Lord, where should he start? What should he do? Where should he go? Like, what does that look like?
I think that I think I would start off by setting everything straight, because if you're not careful, you can start focusing on trying to be a better man, be a better husband, be a better father.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, there's a lot of self-help stuff out there.
Yeah.
And there's all these books on setting habits and just becoming better. And there is something to that we need to work at becoming better. But I think the foundational part that I think that everybody needs to understand as they listen to this podcast or to what we do, is our foundation is Jesus. And what we believe is we really can't move forward with any of it until somebody accepts Jesus, the atoning power of his blood and his resurrection. That's the foundation of anything that's going to last, having to do with manhood, biblical manhood, and because we can't become better outside of Christ.
Sure.
And some people would argue that and say, well, you're making it all religious, but that is who we are, and that is what we believe. We have to transform from the heart, and then behavior changes.
Yeah.
You can't put behavior change in front of heart change.
Wow.
So everything, I think that if there's a man and they're listening and where do I start? The first place you start is, where are you with Christ? Do you have a relationship? Do you understand the gospel?
Yeah.
Do you understand that we've all walked away from God and we need a Savior?
Yeah.
And do we understand that without a Savior, there's a part of us that's dead on the inside?
Yeah.
And until we accept his sacrifice and we receive the Holy Spirit, then we can't come alive to real manhood. And if you don't have that, what happens is the manhood becomes toxic.
Wow.
Masculinity becomes toxic because you don't have that.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the heart of the Father. And I think that's one thing that's really been on my heart to share, is that everything that we do starts with a transformational encounter with Jesus. That happens first. When that happens, we can work from that foundation. We don't have it in us. Part of the problem with manhood is that we always try. Some of us look for better manhood by having a better career.
Yeah.
We fall in love with money. We want career. We want success, and we chase that.
Yeah.
And it's like a bungee. You get going on it, and you get down the road, and then eventually it brings you back into the brokenness. Because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Some of us will chase it in a relationship.
Yeah.
We get down the road, we're on a bungee of relationship, and we're muscling through it, and then eventually you get pulled right back into the brokenness.
Wow.
You can even do it with religion and church.
Wow.
I'm just going to go to church, but it's not about going to church.
Right.
It's really about becoming the church. It's about a relationship with God.
Wow.
And so I think that manhood, we have to start there. You have to start with the right foundation. If you don't, it becomes another self-help program.
But isn't a Christian guy just a guy to make sure his family gets to church on Sunday morning and prays before his food, and provides and kind of tries to raise the kids every now and then on Sunday? Isn't that what it means to be a Christian man in today's society? Or am I off, or am I thinking wrong?
No, I think those things are the byproduct. That's not the end all. You know what I'm saying? And when you try to become something and it's not really who you are because you're not transformed in the heart, right? And so then it begins to be about works. It begins to be like, well, if I just treat my wife right, And if I just get everybody to church and you begin to check off the boxes of like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but then you'll find it's like a bungee.
Yeah.
You'll go down the road with it,
Yeah.
and then it'll suck you back in, and you'll be like, man, I'm still unfulfilled.
Wow.
I still don't feel like I'm doing what I was put on this earth to do.
Wow.
And so I think, we want men to behave better. So we begin to tell men, hey, modify your behavior.
Yeah.
But we'll behave better when we have an encounter with God and he changes our heart.
Wow.
And so it comes from the inside. It's not just an outward shift and change.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Wow. No, that's really good. And as a man who's in full-time ministry, you're pastoring church, you're actually pastoring pastors, you have a house of your own. I mean, as a young man who aspires to want to do that one day, I'd love to hear like what are your responsibilities as a leader in the church, or like what is a let's just get down to the basic man, maybe not just a pastor. What is the responsibility of a man in his household? Like I was reading 2 Timothy, and it says that, if you don't treat your family right, you're worse than a non-believer. So that kind of put a little bit of fear in me.
Right.
So as a father to a lot of people, but even in your own household, like what is the responsibility of a man in his household?
So the Bible says that in heaven we're neither given nor taken in marriage.
Yeah.
Jesus said that. And then there was one time Jesus was somewhere and he said, hey, your mother, your brother, they're outside.
Yeah.
And he said, who is my mother and brother? It's those that do the will of my Father.
Wow.
So the relationships, this will be a little controversial, but
yeah.
The relationships that we have today on this earth, my marriage and my children, are temporary.
Right.
They're gifts from God to show me God, to show me my relationship with God, and to show me my relationship with people. My marriage in Ep.5, as I love my wife like Christ loved the church, and she submits unto me, it's a reflection and a picture of me being the wife of God.
Yeah.
He loves me, and he showed it on Calvary. And so he requires and it demands my submission to him.
Wow.
And so as I walk in my marriage, I am being taught by my wife how to submit.
Wow. So you're learning from your
wife.
wife.
I'm learning from my wife. As she submits to me, I'm learning, wow, that's what God expects from me, right?
Wow.
And so then, even with our children, we have children, they're our first disciples.
Wow.
So as we raise or parent children, it's discipleship. Now, all of those things translate spiritually to spiritual sons and daughters. So it's not enough to but the Bible says, until you get your house right, right? Learn in your house, and then you're qualified to be in the church and lead in the church.
Right.
But in reality, the church is just another family.
Yeah.
The church itself, all the people, they're the bride of Christ. Christ is the husband. We are the bride. And then as I disciple people, they're my children. So, I shouldn't mistreat those that I disciple, because I wouldn't mistreat my own flesh and blood children.
Right.
And so I think that's important that we understand that everything that's happening temporary on this earth is there to make us, to fulfill us, and to give us a demonstration of what we're supposed to be doing spiritually with men and with women in our churches. I think that one thing that I can tell you now, when I was in my 20s and I was being called and doing ministry, I was very zealous, and I was I really was ambitious.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to do everything.
Right.
And I wanted to go everywhere.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be the speaker. I wanted to be all these things.
Don't we all?
And then as you get older and you start realizing, man, my time's running out. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still young.
Yeah.
But
you're not.
But we're all on the clock, right?
Yeah.
We're all headed to a place.
Man, don't talk like that.
All right.
All right.
And so as you get older, you realize I can't do everything.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the burden and the responsibility of raising up people underneath you to keep it going takes on a new meaning.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
No, and that's a really good point, and it's a really good segue. You know, there's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast who either don't have a mentee or don't have a mentor. So can we talk about those perspectives? Because, you know, I look at your life, and first and foremost, before you were a mentor, you were a mentee to a guy for about 20 years.
Right.
And now you're mentoring like 20 plus, pastoring pastors. So what are some things as a young man we should look for in a mentor? Or how does a young man even obtain a mentor?
Right. Well, I would say the first thing I would say as you were talking is like, you never stop being a mentee. I'm still being mentored.
Yeah.
Today. I may mentor a lot of people,
Yeah.
but I still stay teachable to the people in my life right now. Pastor GF, you know, some of the other, Pastor Gerald Davis, Bill Wilson.
Yeah.
Those men still speak into my life, and I still remain teachable. So that's critical, because if you ever cut yourself off and act like, man, I don't need that anymore, I've arrived, then there's danger that comes with that, with the people that you lead.
Yeah.
So but I do believe that when you're young, you find you know, God places us in churches. And so hopefully we're not just at a church because we want to be there. Hopefully we've accepted the fact that God dispatches us, and he knows my gifting. He puts me where he puts me. So what I would tell a young man today is like, where do you go to church, and do they have a discipleship model, and who can you get to speak into your life that you trust in that church? And then begin to allow them to speak into your life.
Like all areas or just some areas?
You know, I think it's all areas. I think, you know, everybody wants a father till you get one. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants the attaboy, but nobody really wants the corrective part.
Wow.
You know, of like, hey,
So
you need, you know, I'm watching this. You need to change that, or get, you know, at the beginning for me, it was like, hey, where were you? You didn't show up to church, you know? And it's like, well, why do I got to tell you where I'm at? You know, I'm like, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old, you know?
I'm a grown man.
And so, like, things like that. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We need a little intercession break. A little intercession break.
Yeah, so I think that in order to be a good mentor, you have to be a good mentee.
Okay.
In order to be a good father, you have to learn how to be a good son.
Wow.
So you don't go directly to fathering. You go through sonship first. And so the other thing is, whatever you do as a son is what you can expect that as a father, you know? And so I learned a lot at Powerhouse in me submitting myself. I chose that.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, it's not like, it's never supposed to be dictated. The son chooses the father.
Yeah.
And then once we choose them, we allow them to speak into our lives. We give them permission to say the good thing and to say the hard thing.
Yeah.
And then as they say it, we get better. And so I've always, my relationship with Pastor GF, he's challenged me, and it's been a challenging relationship.
Yeah.
Just like any relationship would be. And there's times that I listen immediately, and there's times that I don't.
Yeah.
And then there's times that I correct myself, and then I think that whole experience has got me to a place where it's made me a better father. So I've learned from that relationship how to speak into a young man's life.
Yeah.
And to serve you. Like I'm pretty big about, like, if I'm mentoring you, I'm going to serve you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times mentoring relationships can get off because the mentor wants to be served.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you get around somebody that wants you to serve them, you're probably not the right mentor.
Right.
You're going to want to find that guy that says, hey, man, how can I help you?
Yeah.
How do I help you achieve your dreams? How do I help you move forward in your ambitions, in your endeavors?
Yeah.
That's what a father does,
Yeah.
right? If I were to go to my daughters, I'm never really asking them for anything. I
Yeah.
don't need anything from my daughters.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give them something.
Mm.
So if I do that with my natural kids, I definitely have to do that with my spiritual kids.
Wow.
See how that? So I learned how to do that with my natural kids so that I could use it with spiritual sons and daughters, you know.
That's awesome. And I mean, as a man who has a lot of responsibility, say you're a leader at a church, or maybe you've already been a son long enough, and how do you make a decision to take someone on? Like, what are some things that you look on? Because if you can't take on 100 guys, you'll run dry. So how do you, like, you know, it's not that you're rejecting, but you only have a limited amount of time to be, you know, productively mentoring somebody. How do you make a decision on who to mentor and who not to?
You know, I think that's a good question because everything I've ever done, I've tried to model it. So Jesus chose 12.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm not Jesus, but I just use that model of saying, okay, well, what 12 guys are around me that are faithful?
Sure.
You know, I measure. You know, that's probably the 2 Timothy 2 says, the things that I have taught you, Paul tells Timothy, the things that I have taught you or shared with you.
Yeah.
Find faithful men that are able to teach others. So he puts faithfulness in front of ability. And so sometimes, you know, especially in church, you're like looking around and you need all this help. So you're like, man, that guy's really talented in this area, but his faithfulness is not there.
Wow.
And so like, it takes time. It takes prayer. It takes time. Time reveals, like, faithfulness is basically it's revealed over time.
Yeah.
You can't really you can't meet somebody one day and say, wow, he's faithful. You don't know that. You know,
Fair enough.
It's like in a year you're like, wow, this guy's always around. He's always here. He's faithful to the things that we're doing. He's faithful to the vision.
Wow.
And then God shows you, like, you need to take that young man on, or, you know.
Yeah.
And then and hopefully you raise what Jesus did, is what he raised those 12. So Jesus never neglected the crowds, right? So as a pastor, if you're a pastor and you're preaching to crowds, it's you always preach to the crowd.
Yeah.
But you pour your life into 12.
And how
because you have to pour your life into 12 in order to handle the crowd.
Yeah.
You're always, and that's what and so those 12 hopefully will learn how to pour their life into another 12 or another 10 or whatever, however many people. And that's how a church is pastored.
Wow.
That's the only way it can get big, or else it's always going to be hinged on one man. That man's going to burn out and that church is going to die.
Wow. That's wild that you put it in that perspective. Because I look at churches and I just see the one guy, preaching and teaching with this nice sneakers up there. So, like I thought, people like to come hear a preacher speak. So, wow. So there's probably more to that.
Well, they do. People are always going to come hear a preacher speak.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
But discipleship can't be done from the
Well, okay. So you're saying that coming on Sunday isn't enough?
You're not being discipled when you come on Sunday. You're coming to hear.
Okay.
And you're hearing something, and it might disciple you to a level. But there's a difference when me and you get together.
Yeah. And
we begin to do life together, and we begin to do outreach together. We begin to evangelize together. There was a difference with the people that listened to the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
Versus the guys that walked with Jesus and encountered the leper. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's a deeper discipleship that happens when you're encountering the obstacles of life with your mentor.
Wow. So discipleship, you wouldn't say, is like hey, let's meet for coffee at 9 a.m. at a coffee shop every Monday?
It's a part of it.
It's part of it?
I used to say it's not. There's a value to sitting around a book There's a value to doing a workbook. There's a value to reading books.
Sure.
There's a value with just getting together at a coffee shop. I wouldn't say there's no value to it.
Yes, sir.
But it's a whole nother level when you go to India with me.
Yeah.
Or when we go downtown.
Yeah.
Or when we go to Trinity Hunters and we do some ministry on,
Yeah.
something changes,
That's
at a coffee shop, I'm telling you about evangelism. At Trinity Hunters, you're watching your father evangelize.
Wow.
And so that's a whole nother game. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
To be honest, what's missing in our discipleship,
Sure.
when we say the discipleship in America, we're thinking of a workbook.
Right. Right.
And we're thinking about completing a workbook. But discipleship in the Bible was Jesus walking with 12.
Mm.
And there's a cost to that, right? I'm married. I have 3 daughters. I have a granddaughter. How did I spend time with you? We got up at 5, went to the gym.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
There's people that go to church today that were at that gym because we went to that gym.
That's right.
And we shared the gospel in the gym.
We did.
We didn't just work out to meet. We worked out and just worked out our stuff there.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And so then when you're doing that with your mentor, there's a level of discipleship that's happening. People are watching. It was me, you, Danny, Pastor Andres at the gym.
Yeah.
You're talking to this guy. Everybody's watching you. Everybody's listening to you. And it's like a real world example of evangelism. You're not reading it in a book.
Right. Right. That's so
And
good.
then the other thing that closes the deal is when you go to church and that guy you're talking to walks in.
Or he's playing the drums.
Or he's playing the drums.
That's good.
It's
good.
like real world discipleship.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, speaking of that, we need to get back into the gym.
Yeah. Hey, 21 days is almost done. Hey, Sunday 22nd. Get to eat. That's good. That's good. And so,
I want to say this too. Manhood. I think I've said this before in podcasts. I think it's worth repeating. There's 3 things that a man has a responsibility to do.
Okay.
To show the heart of the Father. To give the instruction of the Father. And to cover the family. So when a man walks into church, we have to start at that place of like, when Adam sinned, and when Adam and Eve sinned, they did not take responsibility. And so God had to show up because Adam had the ability to stop Eve. Maybe not to stop Eve, but Adam had the ability to stop himself.
Wow. Time to take a bite.
Right. To obey God rather than to obey man.
Right.
But he chose to obey man. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So he didn't listen to the instruction. And he didn't demonstrate the Father in that moment. He didn't demonstrate the Father.
Yeah.
And he didn't listen to the instruction. And so then when they sinned, God had to show up and cover them. Remember, he sacrificed an animal.
He did.
And he covered them.
Wow.
So those are the 3 things that sin caused us today. So we're trying to regain that. Jesus came back. He's the second Adam. He died on the cross to take care of my sin problem.
Right.
That I might begin to display the heart of the Father, begin to give the instruction of the Father to my family, and to become the covering over my family. That covering is, it's not a lid, and the problem with the covering is we think that it's like you're going to do what I say, but the covering is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because those skins that God used to cover them, something had to die. Something had to die for them to be covered. And so a man has to die for his family to be covered.
Wow.
We have to die to our selfishness, to our preferences, to what we think. That's real covering.
Right.
What we see today is not real covering. It's kind of like we think covering is you're going to do what I say.
Yeah.
right? And that's not covering. It's authoritative, dominating. That's not covering.
Yeah.
That's not biblical covering. Covering requires my death.
Wow.
Covering requires me. When men understand it and when women understand it, the reason that submission is so important to God is because we're asking you to submit because I'm going to sacrifice myself.
Wow.
That's the real. It's not too much to ask for to submit. When Jesus says, submit to my teachings, obey my commands, what he's saying to me and to you is he's saying, I died for you.
Yeah.
To cover you. Submit. It shouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be bucking it.
Yeah. And where does submission start? Like, how do you know someone's submitted?
I mean, I think it's evident in obedience and it's evident in listening. You know, it's like, that sounds, sometimes I know, so the whole idea of misogynism begins to creep up and it's like, oh man, you're just, but it's not. Like, I love my wife.
Yeah.
Like, I desire to love my wife and for her to be safe, for her to be blessed, for her to have everything that she needs. That's my desire on the inside of my heart. And when I do all that, I feel like submission is easy for her.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I even would say this: if submission is hard for you, or if you're noticing that your wife's having trouble submitting, maybe you're not creating the environment to submit.
You're putting the responsibility, calling out a lot of people.
So sometimes what we do is we want to blame her.
Oh,
what we do is say, hey, listen, you know, you just need to submit. Well, maybe you need to change what you're doing, and maybe true submission will come because she sees the heart of the Father.
So you're saying that submission is a byproduct of the man's leadership?
Absolutely.
Man.
That's not popular.
Hey, that puts a responsibility on the man.
It puts the responsibility on the man.
But didn't Adam say, this is the wife you gave me?
That's the problem. You know, he blamed it on his wife.
Yeah. And
that didn't fly.
It did not. It did not.
So God came back and was like, hey, what do you know?
Man.
So like my first response of everything. So I said, show the heart of the Father.
Right.
Give the instruction and cover.
Yeah.
The instruction and the cover, they're rooted in the heart of the Father.
Right.
So if I begin to know the Father so well, and Jesus said, the Father and I are one.
Right.
If you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
Yeah.
So technically, the Gospels show us, the red letters in the Gospel say, this is the Father.
Wow.
So you don't have an excuse. I don't know the Father.
Yeah.
You can read the four Gospels, and you can study Jesus' character, his attributes, his demeanors, the way he handled things, the way he spoke, and what he did, and you have a picture of the Father. And so as a man, if I can know the Father and then demonstrate that same spirit to my family, right?
Yeah.
It changes them.
Wow.
And let me just put a disclaimer out there. Okay. I failed miserably.
Yeah.
Over my life, I'm 53. Got married when I was 20. Didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, even at 50, you know, even 2 years ago, even a year ago, I'm making mistakes. But today I'm catching myself going like, man, that's not the heart of the Father.
Right.
And I'm learning, you know. I'm learning like, wow, if I just, you know, display the heart of the Father, I can reach the heart of my children.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of men, we don't know what to do.
Right.
And so we only know to do what we've learned. You know, what we know to do today is what we've been raised in. And unfortunately, you know, when I was in the business world and I ran factories, I learned leadership by the leadership I was under. And I went through the whole gamut of leadership. You know, I had great leaders and I had horrible leaders. And I found myself that I would imitate my leadership. So if my leadership was rough, old school, threatening,
Yeah.
That style of leadership, like do it or I'm going to fire you.
Yeah.
I found myself reproducing that
Yeah.
until I caught myself. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're going to be firing people left and right.
Right.
Turnover's no good,
Yeah.
And so I started to realize, like, we become what we're under, right? And so the same thing with fathering, mentoring. If you were mentored by a very rigid person, very demanding, very performance-oriented, you're going to mentor the men you mentor that way.
Wow.
And so some of it has to be unlearning things that weren't biblical, that are not the heart of the Father. So how do you know that? How do you got to know the heart of the Father for yourself? And so, I told you this, I mentor you. I said, go and read 1st and 2nd Timothy.
Right.
And read it for the whole year. Read it over and over and over again.
Right.
And it'll give you a picture of Paul, a father, talking to his son, Timothy.
Yeah.
And you get it in you, and you start saying, like, that's how a father talks to his son.
Right.
And you begin to, what if you just talk like that to the guys you're mentoring?
Yeah.
And gave them that kind of advice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we remove all the other junk,
Just make it black and white.
make it, and just stick to the word. Just stick to what we know is the word.
Yeah.
And then the word begins to do the work, right? I know you're working on something, and, you read it, and it said, I think Paul told Timothy, let your aim be love. I mean,
right.
Just those 3, let your aim be love. That phrase is huge.
Yeah.
You can preach for hours on that.
Yeah.
Let your aim be love. I'm thinking I'm called to the ministry. Why? Because you love? Or is it your ambition?
Wow.
Is it what you've seen in your mind of you traveling the world or on a platform? What is it? What is the driving force? Because if your aim is not love, it's the wrong driving force.
Wait. So what if I can prophesy?
Yeah.
Well, what if I can teach and preach? What if I can gather a multitude of
1
people?
Corinthians 13.
Yeah.
If I can speak with tongues of angels, but I don't have love, I'm a gonging cymbal. Right?
Yeah.
He says it in there. He says, even if I can prophesy, if I can cast out devils, if I can do all these things, right? But you don't love. I think I said this not too long ago about compassion.
Right.
Jesus was driven by compassion, and signs, wonders, and miracles happened. Today, we're driven by wanting to see signs, wonders, and miracles, and we have no compassion for the person that the miracle is being done with.
So it's like perverted.
You're looking for the byproduct.
Yeah, you're looking for a moment.
I mean, Jesus was never like, man, I want to see the blind. He was like, man, I feel compassion for the leper.
Right.
I want him to be clean. He wasn't like, man, I can't wait for the leprosy to leave. It wasn't the manifestation of the healing that he was after. He looked at the person.
He was brokenhearted for
And
him.
I wonder if God's trying to say, like, hey, man, I want you to see the person. I want your aim to be love. Like, even if nobody sees it happen, right? In today's world of social media and everything that we do, we put everything out there. We're always trying, and we do it too. We're going to do it with this.
Absolutely.
We're going to put it out there, and we're going to try to help people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I'm thinking like maybe God wants us to love people beyond the post. Like, we just want to see somebody get well, get healed, be delivered, and that's enough. It's enough for me to experience your deliverance. It's enough for me to experience your joy.
Wow.
The answer to happen to you. I don't have to, if nobody knows about it, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's
a good thought.
I mean,
That's
kind
a
of
good thought.
rethink everything that we're doing, sometimes, but.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like you have to recalibrate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, we can get extreme, That's humanity, we swing to one side of the pendulum and then to the other side of the pendulum, right? I'm going to get off all social media, and then it's like, I'm going to put everything on social media, and Maybe there's a happy medium there where we
Yeah.
can all kind of like do what we need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say that media hasn't helped the gospel.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just
It's served.
keeping it does serve a purpose. I mean,
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, the other day we had people from across Europe on one call
Really.
talking about manhood. Romania, Portugal, Spain, United Kingdom. I mean, with today's technology, you can do that. You didn't use, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You have to get on a phone call. Now we have them Zoom,
Yeah.
and those things are useful.
So, one question, and we talked a lot about fathers and sons, and what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, what it means to be a son, how to be submissive, a lot of things, your aim is love, grow in compassion. And so, as a father, when do you know that you've raised a Timothy? Because I mean, like, when do you know you've how Paul would send people? It's like, hey, I can't go, but I'm gonna send you. Like, how do you know a man's up to the level of where he can take responsibility and grab reins for something that's his own?
Well, I mean, I think time is the biggest.
Yeah.
It's our biggest ally it's time, it's watching, it's like it's paying attention to like the faithfulness of someone while they're with you and while they're serving you, and
Yeah.
it's giving them it's almost kind of like there used to be this old thought process or teaching mechanism that people would say, the first thing I do is like, hey Raul, I want you to watch me do this, and you watch me do it, and then I go and I say, okay, now you're gonna do it, and I'm gonna watch you do it, right? And then the third thing is now you go do it.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Yeah.
So there's a season of teaching where you're watching me do it. And then there has to be the season where I'm with you and I'm watching you do it. And before there's ever the season of I release you to go do it.
Wow. That's so good.
I think that would be a good
model
pattern to follow.
And so, you guys really put an emphasis on men at Powerhouse Church. To conclude the podcast, what's the purpose? Why men? Why the focus on men?
If you look at everything that's happening in our world today,
right,
we've got between 70 to 80% of our families are being raised without a man in the house. Single moms are having to step up, and they have been. Yeah. And so the reason that we do what we do is we recognize that the majority of people in prison, when you look at the rape statistics, the people that are perpetrating those crimes are young men that didn't have a father. And so the only way to reverse the curse of the society is to reach the men and to reconcile men back to the families, because men just bring something different.
Yeah.
In today's culture, if you look at what's happening, they're basically saying all patriarchy, the patriarchy is toxic.
Yeah.
Masculinity is toxic. We don't need men. Right?
Yeah, that's the move.
That's the move. That's the thread, which I believe is a spiritual battle.
Yeah, I agree.
And so the church has to come in and begin to say, no, men are the answer.
That's right.
We need more men. We need godly men.
Yeah.
We need men who love their wives, who love their children. We need men who will step up and be men when we need to do things.
Right.
And if we can do that, we feel like we can change the family. If we change the family, we change the church.
Right.
We change the church, we can change the community, and on, and it goes to changing the world.
Yeah. So
we really believe that Malachi chapter 4, verse 6, he says, I will send the spirit of Elijah, and he will turn the hearts of the father to the children and hearts of the children to the father. Lest I come and strike the earth with a curse.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't see the curse, I don't know where you're living.
Yeah.
And so that's the last book of the Old Testament. And then he was silent there was nothing written for 40 years. 400 years. And that's the last thing that was said. We believe prophetically that is the last revival of turning the hearts of the Father to the children, hearts of the children to the Father.
That's so good. Yeah.
And so I believe that every church needs a strong men's ministry.
Right.
That the strength of the church is determined by the men. Yeah. Most churches are 80% female, 20% male. Yeah. But we're being intentional there should be 50-60% male in every church. Right. Our men should be heading up children's ministry. Yeah. Not our women. And some men went, well, why do y'all have to do it? It's because y'all have been doing it long enough. Yeah. We need men to stand up and take responsibility. Right. And so that's one of the things that I feel like we do well at Powerhouse is not just raising men, not just drawing men, but engaging men. Right. And saying, hey, we need you to serve. We need you to be here. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Yeah. Do we make mistakes? All the time. I think, but that's no reason to quit. That's no reason to stop. That's not a reason to say it doesn't work. I tell everybody it's a running game. It's not a flashy passing game like in football. Yeah. You're not, we're just going to run the ball 3 yards at a time. Yeah. 3 to 4 yards at a time. And sometimes we get knocked back a little bit and sometimes we keep moving forward. Yeah. And we're dealing, and when you start doing this kind of ministry, you start really dealing with real things. Right. And that scares people away a lot of times. Yeah. Because they don't want to deal with domestic violence, sexual violence, sexual abuse, or the things that get uncovered as you're beginning to get people set free. Right. But if the church doesn't do it, then who's going to do it? Right. There's no one doing it. Yeah. And so
programs ain't working.
I believe that it's time, Yeah. I would tell men that are listening to this podcast that you need to get in a church. You need to get in a church that believes this way. And you need to get plugged in and you need to start doing what God called you to do. Thanks for listening. If you're hungry for more, catch up on our previous episodes by searching ManChurch on Spotify and Apple Podcast. To watch this episode on YouTube, go to Powerhouse Church's YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and review so more men can find these episodes. To learn more on why manhood and Christlikeness are synonymous, go to manchurchinternational.com. See you on the next episode.